and if there is no implementation, there should be consequence management. The Lekgotla highlighted the need to build a durable social compact between business, government, and labor and communities so that we can harness all our energies and resources to ensure the urgent implementation of the plan in the interests of all South Africans. We have also said that the current economic reforms must not only address immediate challenges, but must also lay the basis for the achievement of our broader transformation objectives. They must be implemented in a manner that supports and advances radical socio-economic transformation. Given the significant fiscal constraints the country currently faces, which will be placed under greater pressure as we roll out the vaccine program, there is a need to reprioritize existing commitments in the budget to ensure we support those in need and stimulate inclusive growth. As Parliament works with urgency to finalize amendments to Section 25 of the Constitution to enable the expropriation of land without compensation, as we've decided at our conference, we have agreed on the need to tie land distribution to agrarian reform. Land redistribution must be expedited. Land in the hands of the government must be released at a much quicker pace. Land redistribution must bolster the agricultural sector, lead to economic growth, and meaningfully tackle poverty, inequality, and unemployment. We must make certain that land reform in the end improves food security for poor families and maintains food security for the entire nation. Agrarian transformation must be promoted, including for black farmers, large and small, for women in our country, for young people, who should be granted security of tenure and given farming support such as access to know-how, to equipment, to farm with, and to markets. The effectiveness of our recovery will depend to a great extent on the scale and pace at which we can bring new electricity generation capacity online. The Lekgotla therefore agrees that we should pursue several measures simultaneously, including the procurement of new generation sources in line with the IRP 2019, including renewables, the procurement of emergency power, improving the efficiency of Eskom, and enabling more embedded generation by firms, including our local governments. The Lekgotla has agreed that in the context of continuing COVID pandemic, we need to consider the extension of basic income relief to unemployed people who do not receive any form of state assistance. This would depend on the state of public finances and that there should be a clear exit strategy if we embark on this initiative. The meeting agreed that the National Guarantee Loan Scheme that was announced as part of the 500 billion relief assistance package announced last year must be fundamentally restructured to improve its accessibility and should enable the participation of SME sector who have up to now not really benefited from this for a number of reasons. This initiative was meant to assist businesses in our country so that they would not need to retrench the employed people. We've now lost more than 2 million people's employment, and we therefore need to revisit this scheme, restructure it fundamentally, and make sure that what the government initially offered, together with the participation of our central bank, which would be channeled through the commercial banks, still should happen. The Lekgotla also agreed that the public procurement bill must be finalized as a matter of urgency and tabled in Parliament for consideration during 2021. The bill must cater for set-asides for small businesses and cooperatives with a view of supporting economic growth and, yes, radical economic transformation, but more importantly, localization. The economic recovery needs to advance gender equality in a meaningful way in our economy. We must give effect to the principle of equal pay for equal work and implement the decision to support women entrepreneurs and industrialists through public procurement. The Lekgotla received a disturbing report that continues to show that the women of South Africa still earn for the same type of work that they do together with men, still earn far less than the men of South Africa. I have said in the past that this is unacceptable. This must come to an end. The women of our country are just as able and just as equal to the men of South Africa as they are. We therefore must ensure that the women of our country, in the end, as they do the same type of work, the equal work that they do with the men of South Africa, should earn exactly the same. There is just no reason women in our country should continue to be treated as unequals as they operate in the economy of our country. We are going to bring this to an end because it is inherently unfair and it would even be unconstitutional. This must end. The Lekgotla welcomed the work being carried out in a number of government agencies to deal with corruption. It agreed that measures to capacitate the National Prosecuting Agency and other law enforcement agencies, improve transparency around procurement, and improve collaboration between agencies must be strengthened. The Lekgotla affirmed the ANC support for the Zondo Commission into state capture and once again called on the law enforcement agencies to act without fear, without favor or prejudice in rooting out corruption and doing their work. An important decision of this Lekgotla is that we will convene an economic summit that will critically look at what COVID has wrought or has done to the people of our country by not only having the negative impact, but also accentuating, worsening poverty, inequality, and unemployment in our country. This summit needs to focus renewed attention on broad-based Black economic empowerment, the transformation of ownership in our country, but also the management and the control patterns in the economy and the promotion of women entrepreneurs as well as Black industrialists. The Lekgotla agreed that as a responsible global citizen, South Africa must contribute its fair share to ambitious climate action by means of a proposed update of South Africa's first nationally determined contribution. The ANC and its alliance partners will therefore host an urgent workshop on these matters of climate change so that we can guide the policy process going forward. The Lekgotla debated how best the country should use radio frequency spectrum for development purposes and what should be the correct configuration of public and private sector participation in this sector. The Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA, has already started the whole process of dealing with the spectrum, something that we've called for quite a long time. It has released invitations to apply, one for the auction and one for the wireless open access network. The Lekgotla urges government to engage ICASA and the sector in general to ensure that the licensing process proceeds expeditiously through an open and transparent process. The applicants for spectrum must be empowered. That is, they must satisfy the empowerment requirements that are embedded in our law, including that of direct ownership. The process must lead to economic growth, the lowering of costs to communicate, that is data costs, and the promotion of effective competition in the mobile market. We have agreed that the capability of the state is vital to an economic and social recovery process, and that specific emphasis needs to be placed on strengthening our local government. The Lekgotla emphasized the centrality of addressing all challenges that local government has towards economic development and improving the lives of South Africans. The district development model must be strengthened by ensuring the financial viability of district municipalities and their ability to raise revenue and deliver services sustainably to our people. Basic service provision will be accelerated through job projects in water, reticulation, borehole construction, spring protection. In construction, we will focus on the construction of rural roads. We want to maintain our public assets. We will also want to embark on ongoing bridge building construction processes. Public employment programs, such as the Community Work Program, will be redesigned to develop skills and to promote local economic empowerment and development. The Lekgotla was unambiguous in its resolve to strengthen consequence management and accountability in municipalities through strengthening public accounts within municipalities, increasing transparency of the supply chain management system, and strict enforcement of the listing of municipal officials and service providers implicated in maladministration. It also urged the state to implement drastic measures to deal with individuals who are vandalizing and destroying public infrastructure, such as our schools, water, electricity, and transport networks. The Lekgotla expressed strong feelings against those who hijack projects in various parts of the country and who even go to an extent of extorting money from service providers. Our law enforcement agencies will be giving maximum attention to this, because this must be brought to an end. We cannot where anyone and everyone does as they wish. This year, this comes to an end. We want our law enforcement agencies to ensure that those who perpetrate these acts that rob the poor people in our country of basic services are dealt with, are taken to law processes, and ensure that the rule of law is observed in our country. An important decision is that the ANC and Alliance needs to be working far more closely at local level, together with other structures of the democratic movement, to ensure that municipalities, as well as those who live in those municipalities, do participate in campaigns that will lead to ensuring that service delivery does take place. But we must also make accountability and transparency, and we must remain focused on the developmental needs of our communities at all times. The meeting identified a broad problem that many local development projects have been started but are sometimes never completed. For resolved on a comprehensive audit of unfinished infrastructure projects, which will inform interventions to complete projects and perform necessary maintenance. As we approach local government elections, we need, as the Alliance, to select candidates for local government that are capable, that are experienced, and are respected in their communities. But more importantly, we should select candidates that have integrity. We have agreed that all existing councillors must go through an intensive evaluation process, particularly in municipalities that have performed poorly or where there are allegations of maladministration and wrongdoing. We need to speed up implementation of our decision to establish an ANC electoral committee to lead the candidate selection process. The Lekgotla identified the need to provide more resources at the local level to combat gender-based violence and femicide, while national government has reprioritized resources to tackle the epidemic of crimes against women and children. Much of the work still needs to be done in municipalities and communities. These efforts need to be properly resourced. The ANC will continue to mobilize across society for a comprehensive campaign to end gender-based violence and femicide, so that no woman or child in our country needs to live in fear. Lekgotla also reflected on another of the ANC's priorities tasks for 2021, namely working towards a better Africa and a better world. As South Africa's term of the chair of the African Union draws to a close in just a few weeks, the Lekgotla agreed that we need to continue to be engaged with several of the priorities of our term. These include the continental response to COVID-19 and ensuring the access of all African countries to sufficient doses of vaccine. Continue to be actively involved in the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, giving particular attention to our initiatives on the economic empowerment of the women of our continent. As a country and as an organization, we will continue to participate in efforts to silence the guns on our continent. We will do this through our participation in multilateral bodies and processes, and where appropriate and where sought, through bilateral engagements. The Lekgotla raised concerns about the lack of progress in solving the issue of Western Sahara in a manner that recognizes the right of the Sahrawi people to full self-determination and independence. We will intensify our efforts in the African Union